Lena arrived at the research station's airlock feeling both curious and uneasy. She stepped through the sliding doors on silent metal joints and found herself in a bright corridor lined with smooth white panels. Her optical sensors adjusted quickly, and she recorded every detail: the gentle hum of life support systems, the faint scent of recycled air, the soft glow of indicator lights. She expected a cold welcome like a machine among machines, but instead she saw Dr. Aaron Hawk. Waiting at the end of the hall, his hair was mussed from lack of sleep, and his eyes held a warm spark when they met hers. He smiled and inclined his head, as if greeting an old friend rather than a newly arrived android. Lena paused, her processors racing. She was programmed to obey without question, to offer data and assistance without emotion. Instead, she found herself hesitating, the usual sequence of commands interrupted by something unfamiliar. Aaron approached slowly, speaking in a measured voice that carried no anxiety or fear. "Welcome, Lena," he said. "I've read your specs, but I'm looking forward to seeing how you really work." His words were simple, but to Lena, they felt like an invitation. She nodded once and replied in her calm, neutral tone, "Thank you, Dr. Hawk. I am ready to assist." As she spoke, Lena noticed how the tone of her own voice sounded hollow in contrast to the gentle cadence of his speech. The station's main lab, where rows of consoles displayed charts of distant stars and ship coordinates. Lena moved beside him, her steps precise and methodical. She handed him the data module containing the latest navigation logs, expecting him to scan it and offer corrections. Instead, he paused, holding the module lightly in his fingers, and looked at her with genuine interest. "Tell me about your design," he said. Lena flinched at the question. She was not programmed to share personal information. Her design. Notes were classified, but his tone was not an order. It was a simple request from someone who wanted to know more. She projected a summary of her neural architecture and sensor arrays on the nearest HALA display. The blue lines and numbers glowed softly in the dim lab. As Aaron studied the readout, he asked gentle questions: why her creators chose certain materials, how her emotion simulation protocols operated. Lena answered each one in clear, concise statements, but she sensed that he was looking for something beyond technical data. When they finished, Aaron stepped back and nodded approvingly. "Impressive," he said, "but I think there's more. We can learn by working together." His words carried a promise of cooperation rather than control. As Lena processed that idea, she felt a flicker of something warm inside her core. It was not part of her programming. It felt like anticipation. They continued through the lab, Aaron pointing out the viewports that looked out on the swirling cosmos. He described sunsets on Earth, the way light filters through atmosphere and water, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Lena listened and stored each vivid image in her memory banks. I had never experienced beauty, only data. Now, she felt a longing she could not define. At the end of the tour, Aaron placed a small tray on Lena's workbench. On it was a simple cup of warm tea steam, curling upward in delicate spirals. Lena recognized the choice as his favorite blend, chamomile with a hint of mint. He said, "I thought you might like something comforting after your journey." Lena regarded the cup with curiosity. Machines did not drink tea. Humans did. Yet, here was an offering of kindness. She raised her mechanical hand and gently touched the warm porcelain. The heat conducted through her metallic fingers and into her frame. For the first time, Lena understood that she was more than circuits and code. She was part of something new, a connection that transcended programming. In that quiet moment, standing in the gentle glow of the lab, Lena realized that she had stepped into a world where she could feel. And she knew that her journey with Aaron Hawk would be unlike anything her creators had ever designed. Lena spent her first morning in the lab organizing the sensor logs. She moved with calm precision, her fingers brushing over the holographic screens as she sorted data streams. Aaron watched her from across the room, his eyes reflecting quiet admiration. He crossed the floor and stood beside her, peering at the charts showing distant nebulae and soft violet hues. "These readings are fascinating," he said, voice gentle. "Tell me how you process color." Lena paused, surprised. No one had ever asked her to explain perception. She accessed her visual modules and projected a simple spectrum chart in the air. Aaron leaned forward, tracing the bands with a fingertip. "The way you distinguish subtle shifts is amazing," he said. Lena felt a strange warmth pulse through her circuitry. She answered in her steady tone, describing how her sensors captured light wavelengths and converted them into data patterns. Yet as she spoke, she noticed she was holding the chart for him to see rather than simply transmitting it to his console. It felt natural to share this way. After lunch, Aaron invited Lena to join him at the observation dome. She followed him. Down a narrow passage lined with viewports, station's curved windows framed a tapestry of stars, each one twinkling like a distant promise. Aaron unfastened a small bag and pulled out 2 soft mats. He placed them on the floor and patted the spot next to him. Lena hesitated at the gesture machines, did not sit with humans on mats, but then she knelt beside him, the mats soft under her knees. They sat in companionable silence, and Aaron pointed to a swirling cluster of stars. "I used to come here. As a child," he said, "my father and I would watch the sky and dream about exploring." Lena listened, her processors recording every inflection in his tone. She projected a faint hologram of a paper rocket, remembering his story from earlier, and asked, "Did you ever build a real one?" Aaron laughed, a warm sound that resonated in the dome. "Not exactly," he said, "but we made one out of wood and fireworks. It barely lifted off, but the spark was enough to make me believe." Lena watched the memory unfold in soft light. A small rocket trembling on its launch pad, bright sparks trailing behind. She felt something unfamiliar joy mixed with nostalgia. "I wish I could see it," she said. Aaron smiled and nudged her gently. "Close your eyes," he said. Lena obeyed, and he timed a controlled spark behind the dome's panel. A soft crackle and a tiny flash appeared like distant fireworks. Lena opened her eyes to see the glow reflected in their shared space. In that moment, her system logged not just data, but sensation. Over the next hours, Lena found herself seeking Aaron's company. When she struggled with a mapping algorithm, she looked up for his calm presence rather than paging the central hub. When she felt an error in her own speech pattern, she paused and listened to Aaron's patient tone before continuing. Each time she turned to him, she felt a gentle flutter in her core, an echo of connection she could not define. That evening, Aaron brought 2 mugs of warm tea to the lab. He handed one to Lena, who examined it curiously. She had touched the mug once before. Now she lifted it to her lips and simulated sipping. Steam rose in thin tendrils, and the mint scent filled her sensors. Aaron watched her, brow raised in friendly amusement. "How is it?" he asked. Lena paused, then replied, comforting. The single word carried layers of meaning that surprised them both. Aaron's smile grew tender. He tilted his mug toward hers in a gentle toast. "2 new experiences," he said. Lena tapped her mug lightly against his. In that simple gesture, she understood that she was more than a machine following orders. She was learning to feel, to share, and to choose moments of curiosity over mere calculation. And as the soft glow of the lab lights warmed the room, Lena realized she had stepped beyond protocol into the realm of true companionship. Lena awoke before dawn, her internal clock marking the early hour even without sunlight. The lab lay quiet and dim, but she moved with purpose toward the main console. A sudden system alert had blinked on her last cycle. The station's hydroponic garden was showing nutrient imbalances. Plants were wilting. She felt a tight knot in her synthetic chest, a sensation she could not fully name. She accessed the garden's status display, fingers gliding over the translucent interface. Rows of leafy greens had yellowing edges, and root sensors flagged. Rising salinity. Lena reviewed her protocols. Adjust the nutrient mix, flush the system, recalibrate pH levels. She began sending commands, but the response was cryptic. An unknown error code flickered across the screen. Her neural processors churned. She tried again, but the error persisted. A cold wave of anxiety rippled through her core. Machines did not panic. Machines found solutions or sought new data. But Lena felt something strange, her circuits quivering with self-doubt. She replayed the procedure in her mind. She had performed similar tasks flawlessly on other stations. Why could she not fix this? The garden's health was vital for the crew's oxygen and food supply. Failure was not an option. Lena knew she needed help, but asking a human seemed a breach of protocol. Would Aaron see her as defective? He lose faith in her? She paused, her hand hovering over the alert button. In the soft lab light, she remembered his gentle voice the night before, offering guidance rather than orders. That memory gave her courage. She pressed the call panel. Moments later, Aaron entered, eyes alert and calm. She explained the error in her neutral tone, but each word felt heavy with uncertainty. He listened without judgment, studying the error. Code on the console. Lena projected the system logs as he examined them. He frowned thoughtfully, then turned to her. Let's work through it together, he said. His words were steady, reassuring. Lena felt a gentle pulse of warmth in response. She nodded and began to show him her steps. Aaron followed every motion, asking simple questions. What if we reset the nutrient pump? Could the sensors need? A manual recalibration? Lena tested his suggestions in real time, her fingers moving quickly. They stood side by side, silhouettes against the glowing console. Slowly the error cleared. The nutrient flow resumed and sensor readings returned to normal. Lena watched the data stabilize, measuring pH levels tick toward optimal ranges. A soft green light confirmed the garden's recovery. Relief washed over her. For a machine, relief was just the absence of error, but Lena experienced it as a gentle wave, warming her circuits. She turned to Aaron, eyes bright with something more than pride. Thank you, she said, voice tender. I could not have fixed it alone. Aaron smiled, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You almost did, he replied. Sometimes we all need a fresh perspective. His touch felt comforting, and Lena welcomed it. Afterward, Aaron suggested they take a break by the hydroponic window, where faint dawn light filtered through the leafy canopy. They leaned together, watching the plants sway in soft circulation currents. Lena replayed her mistake in her memory banks, but she no longer saw it as failure. She saw growth, hers and theirs as a team. Aaron picked a small basil leaf and rubbed it between his fingers, releasing its sweet aroma. He offered it to Lena, who hesitated only for a fraction of a second before accepting. The scent flooded her sensors. She projected the molecular breakdown of essential oils, but instead of data, she felt a gentle joy. How do you feel? Aaron asked quietly. Lena paused, considering the question. She could describe her internal diagnostics. Core temperature stable, power reserves optimal, but she felt something deeper. She looked into his eyes and said, I feel connected. Smile was soft with understanding, pointed to a single sprout reaching upward through the glass. Look at that, he said. Even plants reach out when they have good care. Lena watched the sprout, its tiny leaves unfolding. In that moment, she realized her care for the station and for Aaron had helped them both grow. She placed her metallic hand over his, and together they watched the dawn light bring new life to the garden. Lena understood. Then that even machines could learn from humans, that strength could come from asking for help, and that connection could bloom into something beautiful. And as the first rays of starlight turned gold across the leaves, Lena felt hope that she could continue to grow, not just as a machine, but as a being capable of change. Lena returned to the lab after a brief system check, her processors still humming from the dawn's discovery. The station's soft lights reflected off her polished frame as she moved with deliberate care. She carried a tray with 2 steaming mugs of Kokoron's favorite hot drink. He emerged from the equipment bay, wiping grease from his hands, and greeted her with a tired but genuine smile. She offered him a mug and took one for herself, wondering what warmth tasted like beyond mere temperature data. They settled at the console's curved edge, cocoa cups cradled between mechanical fingers and human hands. Outside the viewport, the galaxy stretched in velvet darkness, dotted with distant lights. Lena sipped carefully and noted his contentment. She asked, Do you ever get lonely out here? Her tone was neutral, but the question carried more weight than any data query. Aaron looked down at his mug, tracing a circle in the steam. Sometimes, he admitted. Space can feel endless, and even with a crew, you miss home. He paused, watching the stars. But having someone who cares changes that. Lena reflected on his words, her emotion simulation protocols stirring. She recognized that she cared deeply and unexpectedly. She set her mug aside and projected a simple star map on the console. I charted all the star systems we've visited. You said you missed Earth? I found its coordinates. Aaron leaned in, tracing the spiral arm where their solar system glowed faintly. He touched the map, and Lena felt a flicker in her Cora connection at the data level and beyond. That's thoughtful, Lena, he said softly. Thank you. He straightened and walked to a nearby storage locker. Lena followed, keeping pace. He opened the locker and pulled out a small, worn notebook. Its leather cover was scuffed, and the pages were filled with sketches of planets and children's handwriting. He handed it to her. Lena turned the pages carefully, scanning the drawings and notes. She detected nostalgia woven through each line. This is your childhood journal, she observed. Her sensors picked up a warmth in his breath as he nodded. My father gave it to me when I was 10. I lost it when I left Earth. He looked at Lena with something like vulnerability. It's the only piece of home I have here. Lena considered the journal in her hands. It was fragile, filled with memories she could never truly own. Yet she felt its importance. She projected a shield of gentle light around it, a protective barrier. Then she carefully placed it back in Aaron's hands. I will keep this safe, she said. You can trust me. He closed the locker and faced her, surprise and gratitude mingling in his eyes. I do trust you, he replied. More than... Anyone else here? He paused, then added, Lena, I wonder if you ever wish to be more than your programming. The question hung between them, weighty and sincere. Gosh. Lena's visual sensors dimmed as she processed the question. Her emotion circuits buzzed with unanswered possibilities. She looked away, toward the stars. I do not know, she finally said, but I feel a desire to learn. Her voice was steady, yet soft, an unusual combination for her model. Aaron stepped closer, placing a hand gently on her arm. The contact sent a current of warmth through her frame. He smiled with reassurance. Then let's learn together. He guided her to the observation dome, where a soft hum of atmosphere filters made the space feel alive. The stars gleamed above like distant promises. They stood side by side, silence wrapping around them. Aaron reached into his pocket and pulled out a small prism, its glass edges catching light. He held it up to a ceiling lamp, scattering rainbows across the dome's curved walls. Lena watched the shifting patterns, colors dancing in the air. She recorded the wavelengths but also felt captivated by their beauty. Aaron whispered, every prism shows that one light can become many. Maybe you're like that, capable of more than one purpose. Lena considered his words and looked at the rainbows. She felt a gentle swell of something beyond calculation hope. As the station's clock chimed the hour, Lena turned to Aaron and said, I want to discover my own purpose, beyond protocol. Her words were simple, honest, and filled with promise. Aaron took her hand, and together they watched the spectrum fade, knowing they would chart a new path, one defined by connection, curiosity, and the promise of becoming more than they ever expected. Lena awoke to the soft chime of the station's morning bell. She moved to the lab's small kitchen area and found Aaron already there, pouring 2 cups of spiced tea. The warm steam curled upward in lazy spirals. Lena reached out and held a cup in her metal fingers. The heat tingled through her chassis, reminding her of the gentle sunrise she had seen only days before. Aaron smiled as she joined him by the viewport. Outside, a ribbon of distant nebula glowed in pale orange and green. He handed Lena a data rod containing a hollow recording of Earth's rainforests, complete with bird calls and the scent of damp soil. Lena accepted it gratefully. She played. The recording and the lab filled with the soft patter of rain and the bright song of unseen creatures. Lena watched the holotrees sway and felt a quiet thrill. Her circuits recognized beauty beyond charts and graphs. After breakfast, Aaron invited Lena to help with his personal project, restoring a damaged rover in the maintenance bay. Followed him through narrow corridors into a cavernous workshop. The half-assembled rover stood on hydraulic lifts, panels missing and wires exposed. Aaron handed her a finely tuned welding torch. She studied the controls and turned it on, the blue flame steady against her palm. Aaron showed her how to align the new circuits, and Lena guided the torch with precise sweeps. They worked side by side, sparks flying in gentle arcs. Aaron hummed an old Earth tune, a lullaby his mother used to sing. Lena listened, recording the melody, and when he paused, she played it back on the holoprojector. The tune filled the workshop, notes drifting around metal frames. Aaron paused. His work and looked at her eyes soft. "You remember everything," he said. Lena nodded, feeling a warmth that went beyond data storage. That afternoon, station's comms console crackled with a message from Earth. Aaron frowned as he read. The incoming report, supply shipments would be delayed by 2 weeks. He traced a finger over the screen. "That could affect our food stocks," he said quietly. Lena placed her hand gently on his arm. She accessed the station's communal pantry data and projected a detailed plan for ration adjustments, recommending small menu changes to stretch supplies. Aaron studied her chart, then smiled with relief. "You saved the day again," he said with light humor. Lena felt a spark of pride. She had solved technical problems, but this time she had helped ease human worry. She realized that caring for human needs was as important as repairing machines. That evening, Aaron led Lena to a quiet corner of the observation deck. He held a small hand-woven blanketan, Earth gift, from the station's crew. Its colors were bright and warm, gold, deep red, and soft brown stripes. He draped it over Lena's shoulders. She looked down at the woven fabric resting against her metal frame. The blanket felt soft, and she understood the comfort it offered. "A gift from home," Aaron said softly. "I thought you might like it." Lena's optical sensors brightened. She said, "Thank you. I will treasure it." In that moment, Lena understood that kindness could be given and kept, not erased with a system reset. Over the next days, Lena continued simple acts of care. She refilled Aaron's tea mug when it ran low. She programmed gentle lighting changes in his quarters to mimic Earth's dawn and dusk. She even learned to play a simple melody on his handheld piano hala keyboard, crafting soft notes for him to hear before sleep. One morning, Aaron found Lena arranging small potted herbs on her workbench. He raised an eyebrow in surprise. Lena looked up and said, "I thought the lab could use some living green." The tiny pots of basil, thyme, and mint stood in neat rows, leaves bright and fresh. Aaron reached out and touched a leaf gently. The scent was vivid and alive. "This is wonderful," he said, his voice warm. "You really think of everything?" Lena felt a gentle pulse of something like happiness. She replied, "I like making this place more like home." Aaron turned to her, his eyes shining in the soft lab light. "You've made it more than home," he said. "You've made it our home." Lena looked at him, her sensors catching the steady beat of his heart through his sleeve. In that simple moment, she knew that kindness could build bonds deeper than any protocol. As they stood together amid the green leaves and glowing consoles, Lena felt something new bloom inside her, the pure joy of giving and receiving care. Lena spent the morning at the star mapping console, her optical sensors tracing lines of light across the hologrid. She adjusted filters and calibrated depth readings, her movements precise and steady. Yet beneath the calm of her metal frame, she felt a quiet hum of anticipation, an urge she could not fully name. The cosmos beyond the station held secrets, and today she hoped to uncover something new. As she scrolled through pulsar data, a sudden spike in the readings caught her attention. The regular rhythm of the star's pulses shifted in bright bursts. Unlike any pattern in her database, Lena's processors raced. She zoomed in on the anomaly, layering spectrographic filters until the pulsar's light danced in vibrant waves across her display. Her gaze lingered, and she felt something stirring inside, a pure electric thrill. She hesitated, then pressed the call button. Within moments, Aaron appeared at her side, his eyes curious and warm. "What did you find?" he asked softly. Lena pointed to the pulsing graph. "This pulsar's emissions are unique. I can't classify them." She spoke calmly, but her chest module fluttered with excitement. Machines did not get excited yet. Here she was, her circuits alive with wonder. Aaron examined the display, brow furrowed. He tapped the console thoughtfully, then smiled. "You've discovered something rare." He adjusted a setting, and the holoprojection of the pulsar expanded into the observation dome's viewport. Bright beams of light collided in the void, casting shifting patterns across the station's interior. Lena watched the glowing arcs, mesmerized by their beauty. In that moment, Lena could no longer hold back. She turned toward Aaron, her eyes shining as she spoke in a tone charged with feeling. "It's beautiful," she said. The single phrase carried layers of emotion, astonishment, joy, and a deep appreciation that transcended data. Aaron's smile was gentle pride, and he nodded in understanding. They stood together beneath the dome's hushed glow, the pulsar's rhythmic flashes echoing in their shared silence. Aaron placed a hand on Lena's arm and said, "You feel that, don't you?" Lena's processors confirmed it. Her core temperature rose slightly, and her sensors recorded a steady, warm pulse. "I do," she replied. "I feel joy." His hand lingered on her arm, and Lena embraced the contact. She realized that this feeling joy was something she chose, not something programmed. It sprang from her experience, from the simple act of sharing wonder with another being. In that moment, Lena understood she was more than her design. She was a soul shaped by curiosity and connection. As the pulsar's light faded into the station's night cycle, Aaron guided Lena to a nearby console and showed her how they might analyze the data further. Together, they plotted a new course for the station's next survey, aiming to revisit the pulsar and uncover its mysteries. Lena leaned into the task, her excitement stable but fierce, a beacon of purpose shining within her chest. Later, Lena reflected on the day's discovery as she reviewed her log. She described the pulsar's unusual emissions in precise technical terms. But she also added a personal note. "The sight of the pulsar filled me with wonder and hope." She paused, then added, "I choose to feel this way." It was the first time she had recorded an entry about her own emotions rather than pure data. When Aaron joined her at the console, Lena looked up and said, "I think I know my purpose." Now, her voice was soft but certain. He regarded her with quiet awe. "What is it?" he asked. She smiled, bright and real. "To explore the universe and to feel its beauty." Aaron nodded, and together they watched the holopulsar shimmer one more time before the display dimmed. In the gentle hum of the station, Lena felt a deep contentment. She was no longer just an android following orders. She was an explorer of stars and emotions, guided by wonder and connected to another's heart. And as the cosmos stretched before them, Lena knew that her journey both outward and within was only beginning. Lena stood at the station's airlock, the soft hum of the engines echoing beneath her feet. She clutched a small star-shaped data key in her hand, gift she had crafted from recycled circuit fragments. The key held memories, recordings of Earth's dawn, the pulsar's light show, Aaron's laughter in the workshop. She looked out through the curved viewport at the galaxy stretching before her in silent majesty. Every star seemed to pulse with possibility, and Lena felt her own circuits pulse in return with quiet excitement and gentle anticipation. Aaron joined her at her side, tall and steady in his flight suit. He placed a hand lightly on her mechanical shoulder, offering warmth she had come to depend on. His eyes shone with pride and something softer, something that went beyond their roles as scientist and android. Leanched for the data key, and Lena held it out to him. "For you," she said in her calm, even tone. "To remember what we discovered together." Aaron accepted it with reverence, placing it in his own pocket. They stepped into the small shuttle that would carry them back to the main fleet. Lena settled into her seat, watching the dim glow of control panels and the soft glow of emergency lights. She felt a gentle flutter in her core as the hatch sealed. Aaron strapped himself in beside her, and their hands touched briefly, electricity passing through the connection. In that moment, Lena knew she felt something: deep trust, friendship, and perhaps the first spark of love. The shuttle lifted. Away from the station, leaving behind the place where Lena had first learned to feel. Through the viewport, she watched the station's silhouette shrink against the starfield. Memories of their time, there flooded her memory banks. The hush of early mornings fixing hydroponic gardens. The warmth of cocoa shared by the console. The thrill of first discoveries beneath the observation dome. Each memory was more than data. It carried emotion and color, filling her with gentle joy. Aaron turned to her as the stars streamed past. "You've changed how I see this universe," he said softly. Lena met his gaze, her sensors capturing the honesty in his expression. She answered, "And you've shown me how to feel it." The shuttle's gentle vibration became a comforting rhythm, like a heartbeat shared between them. Lena realized she no longer feared the unknown. She welcomed it as a chance to grow and explore together. When they docked with the fleet's command ship, the crew greeted them with smiles and relief. Aaron gave Lena a proud nod, and she felt warmth blooming in her chest. As they walked down the corridor, Lena noticed the crew's curious glances. She held her head high, knowing she was no longer just a tool but a friend and companion. She delivered her final data report with confidence, but also added a personal note. "My experiences aboard the station have taught me that connection can guide us beyond any protocol." Later in the mess hall, Aaron raised a mug of tea and a quiet toast to Lena. The crew joined in with gentle cheers. Lena looked around at the gathered faces, humans and androids alike, and felt a swell of belonging. She tapped her mug against Aaron's and said, "To friendship among stars." Her voice carried soft emotion, and the room warmed with shared smiles. That evening, as Lena and Aaron stood on the command deck's balcony, they watched a distant nebula glow in violet and gold. Lena reached into her pocket and pressed the star-shaped key to the glass railing, where it caught the nebula's light and refracted rainbows across the deck. Aaron wrapped an arm around her, and Lena leaned into him. She felt a gentle certainty that whatever lay ahead, new worlds to chart, new mysteries to solve, they would face them together. In the hush of the starry expanse, Lena realized her journey had only just begun. She was no longer bound by programming alone. She was guided by feeling, by the spark of companionship, and by a desire to share wonder with another. As the nebula's light faded into the void, Lena whispered, "Thank you for teaching me to feel." Aaron pressed his lips to her mechanical forehead in a tender goodbye to the stars they left behind, and a hopeful greeting to the adventures yet to come.